Good morning, Year 3. I decided I'd read a Teddy Robinson story to you too. Teddy Robinson was quite a popular one for me when I was a little girl, and as you can see the books are getting a little bit tatty now, and the pages are falling apart a bit. So this Christmas we bought our youngest a new copy, so these are much better and the pages don't fall out. So this story is from Teddy Robinson Meets Father Christmas and Other Stories by Joan Robinson. And the story I'm going to read for you today is called Teddy Robinson Goes to the Fair. One day, Teddy Robinson sat on the windowsill of Deborah's room and thought about all the things he most specially wanted. Deborah was helping Mummy to make gingerbread that morning, so he had a nice long time to think. First, he thought how jolly it would be if a fairy came by and asked him to go to tea with the man on the moon. But that was only pretend thinking, and he knew it couldn't really happen. So he decided to think about all the real things instead. He found there were quite a lot of real things that he wanted. I would like to be able to play the piano, he thought. Then I could make the music for the songs that I think of. And he had a picture in his mind how nice it would look to be sitting at a piano on a high stool while everyone sat round listening to him play. Then, I want a satchel, he thought, and a pair of Wellington boots. And I would like to ride on a horse. But more than all the other things, I most specially want is to drive a motor car. He had often been for rides on buses with Deborah, and when they had been lucky enough to have a front seat on the top, he had done quite a lot of things to help the driver make the bus start and stop. He had found that when the traffic lights were changing from red to yellow, he only had to push forward once or twice and the bus would start. And when the traffic lights were changing from green back to yellow and red, all he had to do was sit back sharply and the bus would stop. But of course, that was not the same as really driving. It was only helping. I must practice driving a motor car all by myself, just in case I ever have the chance. So he sat on the windowsill and rocked gently from side to side, growling to make the motor car noise. Then he held the middle button of his jacket between his paws and turned it round, first this way and then that, to practice going round corners. He had just decided that he was good enough now to drive all by himself and take a really long ride before dinner, when Deborah came running into the room. "Guess what, Teddy Robinson?" she said. "The fair has come, and we're going this afternoon." "Good," said Teddy Robinson. "In that case, I won't pretend to ride after all. What is a fair?" "Oh, it's lovely," said Deborah. "There are swings and roundabouts and all sorts of things. You shall come with me for a ride." "What on?" asked Teddy Robinson. "On a horse on the roundabout," said Deborah. "Oh, very nice," said Teddy Robinson. "That's one of the things I specially wanted." While Deborah brushed his fur with the doll's brush and put on his best purple dress he always wore for parties, Teddy Robinson began singing to himself because he was so happy. The fair, we're off to the fair. What shall we do when we get there? Ride, of course, on a galloping horse, a nice little girl and a big brown bear." "Don't be silly," said Deborah. "It ought to be a big girl and a middle-sized bear." "Sounded better the other way," said Teddy Robinson. "And anyway, I always feel big when I'm happy." After dinner they set off. Mummy had given Deborah 2 shillings to spend at the fair, and she and Teddy Robinson were busy all the way thinking how they were going to spend it. "It will make 4 rides if there's 6pence each," said Mummy. "Or 3 rides and 1 candy floss," said Deborah. "Or 4 candy flosses," said Teddy Robinson. "Yes, but they're so big we shan't want 4, said Deborah. "Shan't we?" said Teddy Robinson. "What are they?" "They're great big fluffy things on sticks," said Deborah. "They look like pink cotton wool, but you can eat them." Soon they heard the noise of the fair, and a moment later they turned the corner and were at the fairground. Teddy Robinson thought he had never seen anything so exciting. There were so many things to look at, and he didn't know what to look at first, but Deborah decided for him. "Look, Teddy Robinson," she said, "there's the roundabout with the horses. Shall we go and have a look at that first?" "Oh, yes," he said. So they waited for the roundabout to stop and then ran to choose their horse. It was a beautiful roundabout, all painted in red and gold, and each of the horses had its own name printed on the side. "Can I have my own special horse?" asked Teddy Robinson. "No, you might fall off," said Deborah, "and anyway we'd have to pay extra." So they chose a grey and white spotted horse called Nellie and climbed up onto her back together. Teddy Robinson sat in the front with his paws round Nellie's neck. "Don't hold on to me then," he said. "All right," said Deborah. Then the music began and off they went. Mummy stood and watched. And as they went round and round, and sometimes she waved at them. Teddy Robinson didn't dare wave back in case he fell off, and as they went faster and faster he was glad to feel that Deborah was holding him after all. It was most exciting. He began to sing his little fair song again, but this time he changed it too. "Gee up, Nellie, to the fair, round and round till we get there. Gallop along as fast as you dare, with a nice little girl and a big brown bear." Then the music stopped and the horses stood still, and they felt as if they couldn't bear to get down just yet, so they stayed on Nellie for another ride. Deborah gave the man another sixpence and off they went again. It was just as lovely as the first ride, but it seemed to be even shorter. Next time the horses stopped, they said goodbye to Nellie and they climbed down. "Thank you," said Teddy Robinson, "that was very nice." After that they went to the candy floss stall and they gave the lady a sixpence, and she made them a candy floss that was nearly as big as Teddy Robinson. "Good gracious," he said, "shall we be able to eat it all today?" There's a picture there. But it looked so big and so fluffy, and it didn't take them that long at all to eat right the way through it. "We've only got sixpence left already," said Deborah when they finished. "We'd better go and look at some other things before we decide what to spend it on." They stopped at a stall where some people were throwing darts at a dartboard. "What are they doing that for?" asked Deborah. "If they get a big enough number they might win a prize," said Mummy. Deborah and Teddy Robinson decided they would save their last sixpence for something else, but they stayed to watch for a while. At the back of the stall were prizes. There were lots of tea sets and glass dishes and some baskets of fruit, and standing up in the middle were 5 very large pale blue teddy bears. They were wrapped in cellophane and looked beautifully new and shiny, but they had rather silly faces. Teddy Robinson looked at them for a long time. Then he looked down at his light brown fur, which wasn't shiny any more. He began to feel rather small, and although he was wearing his best purple dress, he suddenly felt old and shabby. He looked at Deborah out of the corner of his eye, and he saw that she too was staring at the teddy bears. He wondered if she thought they were beautiful, and he hoped she didn't. "I think it's rather soppy to be pale and blue, don't you?" he said. "Yes," said Deborah, "I'd rather have your colour to live with. Those teddy bears look specially beautiful, poor things." "Why are they poor things?" asked Teddy Robinson. "Because they're all prizes to be won," said Deborah. "You wouldn't want to be a prize, would you?" "Oh no," said Teddy Robinson, and he began to feel sorry for the big pale blue teddy bears and hoped they hadn't heard him say that they were soppy. After they looked at quite a few other things, they decided to spend their last sixpence on another kind of roundabout. This one was where you sat in a little chair, with their feet sticking out in front of them, and as they went round and round they seemed to go higher and higher. They both thought it was rather like being on an aeroplane. "That was nice, wasn't it?" said Deborah when they got down. "I hope you enjoyed it." "Oh, yes, I hope I did," said Teddy Robinson, "because it was my last ride. But I think I like Nellie better." "So did I," said Deborah. And then, just as they were going on their way out, they saw a roundabout with motor cars and motorbikes that they hadn't seen before, and they stopped to look at it, and Teddy Robinson felt rather sad. "I never specially wanted to go on an aeroplane chair," he said, "but I did want to ride in a motor car." "I haven't any money left for a ride on one of those," said Deborah. "I know," said Teddy Robinson, "but just let's look at them. Let's choose which one we would ride in if we did have enough money." So they walked all the way round, looking at each car in turn, and they both decided that the bright blue one was the nicest. "If I sat in the front seat," said Teddy Robinson, "do you think my paws would reach the driving wheel?" "I think they might," said Deborah. "Could I just try?" he asked, "just for a minute?" "No, don't think so," said Deborah. "Don't worry me, there's a good boy." "Oh no," said Teddy Robinson, "I won't worry you, I'll just think about it instead." And he began thinking to himself in a round and round sort of way, a little bit like this. "If I could sit in it for only a minute, sit in it a minute before it began, if I could sit in it." "Oh, all right then," said Deborah, "just for a minute. I don't expect the man will mind." She lifted Teddy Robinson up and sat him in the front seat of the blue car. "Oh, look," she said, "your paws do reach the steering wheel." "So they do," said Teddy Robinson, and he felt very pleased. Deborah was so busy admiring him that she never noticed that the roundabout was just going to start. She turned round to show Mummy, and at that minute the cars began to move slowly round. Before she had time to lift him off again, Teddy Robinson was out of reach, going round and round in a little blue car all by himself. He sat up very straight, and his paws on the driving wheel felt bigger and better than he'd ever felt before, as he went round and faster, and the wind ruffled his fur, and he felt as if he was going miles and miles all by himself. Every now and then he saw Deborah, and each time he passed her and she waved a hand at him, and he didn't wave back because he didn't want to take his paw off the driving wheel. It was so lovely to be really driving a motor car at last all by himself. And he began to sing a little song, going round and round in his head, and it went round and round the roundabout. "Here I am, here I are, driving in a motor car. What a clever bear I be. Don't forget to wave at me. Lucky, lucky Teddy R, driving in a motor car." And then at last the cars began to get slower and slower until they stopped. Deborah ran and lifted him out. "Oh, Teddy Robinson," she said, "I never meant you to have a ride, but wasn't it fun?" "It was lovely," said Teddy Robinson, "and didn't I drive well? I never bumped into any of the other cars." And it was time to go home. And after that it was time to go home. Teddy Robinson felt so happy and pleased with himself that he even waved his paw at the pale blue bears as he passed their stall on the way out. "I'm lucky not to be a prize at the fair," he said to himself. "In fact, I'm a jolly lucky chap altogether. I may not have learned to play the piano yet, and I still haven't got a satchel or a pair of Wellington boots, but I did ride on a horse, and I have driven a motor car all by myself." And that is the end of the story about how Teddy Robinson went to the fair.